Hello everyone, and welcome back to Unconditional Surrender, designed by Salvatore Vasta, published by GMT Games. I'm Dren608, and this is my Me, Myself, and I campaign playthrough. We are picking up from October of 1939, so we are very early in the sequence here. I will be trying to do some zooming to try and get a little bit clearer pictures of the counters as we go along. Well, I don't really need to be in Russia at the moment, kind of in the middle of Europe. First things up, we have to do the weather die roll since we're starting here. And I will pull up the player aid card so we can see what the die rolls mean. Actually, no, I won't, because I have to get to the dice. There we go. Sorry about that. Need to adjust a few things for size. There's the weather table. Okay, so it's October, and as I've stated before, weather is going to be straight down the table. So first die roll is cold zone, second die roll is mid zone, mild zone, third one is the warm zone. Similar to my attacking, attackers always roll first. That way you always know the sequence. It's basically top to bottom, attacker to defender. And then any other die rolls that come after those kinds of things, that's when I roll those. And I'll usually say what I'm doing when I roll extra dice. So here we go for weather. The cold zone is a 2. And according to the chart over here, that makes it poor. Okay, and then the die roll for mild zone is a 3. In October, November, that is also poor. So I guess it's raining everywhere. And then in the warm zone, it is a 2. So it's fair in the warm zone. So it's nice in the Mediterranean, but lousy everywhere else. And that will take care of that part of the turn sequence. The declare war phase, I think I'm going to forgo that in poor weather. I don't really have myself set up to do a proper assault on the Danes or anyone else, so we'll skip the declare war phase for the Axis. The Western and the Soviets cannot declare war because there still is one of the treaty things in place. The Eastern Treaty with the Soviets is still in place, which prevents any allied country from declaring war. I'm going to again go through the economy phase a little bit quickly here. The Germans get 28 because of their conquest of Poland. They added a factory, so they're at 14 times 2. The French are still at 16, and by the way, yes, I know I only took 2 points off on the French when I took off their sorties on their airplane, but seeing as how they had like 12 left, I don't think it really mattered at the time. The British have 9 factories, so they have 18. And the Russians now have 10 factories, so they actually get to have 20 build points. And that takes care of build points. Production points. I keep calling them build points. I need to call them production points because they do more than just build units. So hopefully I will get to the point where I call them production points instead of build points. So that takes care of our economic phase. Strategic warfare phase. We haven't triggered that particular sequence yet. Strategic movement for the Axis. The first thing that happens in this is that the strategic marker comes off and goes back into my events box. So that unit is now free to do things. Next up, let's see, I need to have 3 infantry over there, so I could just bring one of the infantry back west, which I think I will do. So I'll move this over here. I'm going to go ahead and use strategic move marker on the 10th. I'm going to zoom this in a bit. There we go. I'm going to put this on him. And then I'm going to strategically move him down all the rail lines, boom, 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 through Vienna, through Prague, and on through Frankfurt. And then we're going to stop here, because there are no zones of control from the Maginot Forts. I can actually place him there. And that takes care of strategic movement. Western allies do not have any. The Soviets, no, not right now. So we're to operations for the Axis. This is going to be relatively quick for them. Essentially, they're going to spend a build point here to move this guy. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put this. This isn't going to fit real well. I'll spend another build point to move the infantry unit I don't need to have on the East Front, the 4th here. And let's get him coming home. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we'll spend 2 production points to move the 1st Panzer Army here. Move this down here so I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go in Hanover just for kicks. Gas up the tanks in Hanover. Not really, but had to have an excuse to go there. I am not going to bother doing any other moves over there. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I can go ahead and put the 2nd Panzer let's put the 2nd Panzer in Kiel for now. So that's another 2 build points that I just spent. 1, 2. Oh dear, I only have 22 build points left. Oops, gotta click on the unit to make that work. There we go. And I'm pretty much done with the Germans. Everything's in supply. There's nothing really to do. Poor weather kind of puts a crimp in you. As stated earlier, the new weather rules will make sure that November is either going to be clear or severe. It cannot be poor weather like this again. That's one of the new rules that we're trying out in the playtest, that the month of April, November, and June cannot have the same weather as it had as the previous month's weather. So if you get the same kind of weather on a die roll, you have to keep rolling until you get something else. So I'm hoping I'm going to get lucky and get a clear weather turn in November and then just roll over Denmark and be happy. We will have to wait and see. So the Axis is done. The Western faction doesn't have a lot to do. It's going to basically be the British are going to spend 2. Down to there. And they will activate the BEF. One. And I believe that that's going to be it for the Western Allies. I'm not going to bother with this air war with the Germans at this point. I might try again, like in March or April, to try and set them up to have some extra sorties, but not now. The British have to stay in supply through this convoy, so that takes a sortie. And just so I get in the habit of it, I will go back down to the Middle East here and also put a sortie on this convoy to keep the Western Desert Force here. Where is he? There he is. Western Desert Force in supply. So that's the Western, and the US Soviets they move this airplane to here. I was looking at my friend's setup, so I'm trying to emulate what he did. And I can't remember this airplane, I believe, went here. And that's all the Soviets will do for this turn. They have everything in supply. There is no supply phases. There is a replacement phase for the Axis. They will be spending 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to remove that sortie marker and to remove this sortie marker. Again, I'm just going to drop it up here in the ocean for now. It's just nice to have a few of them sitting out and ready to use. Okay, that's the Axis replacements. The Western replacements, France will spend 3. I'll do it right this time. 1, 2, 3 to make this sortie marker go away. And then the British will spend 6 to make this sortie marker go away. I should put it there. And to make the one in the Middle East go away. So the British are left with 10, the French are left with 13. The Russians will do their replacements phase. Whoops, went too far. They will spend 6 as well to clear their 2 aircraft. And so they clear off their 2 aircraft. And that's the end of the replacements phase. There is no upgrade units yet, so we don't do that. Mobilization, yes. The Axis actually have, what is this? They have 1, 2, 3 infantry, so they will spend 1, 2, 3 of their build points. Why is this faction card so big? I must have tried to enlarge it or something. I don't know what I'm doing here. So the Germans are going to get some things. These infantry units both have to come in at reduced strength, because that's how you build things unless you're the Russians. So we will bring them in at we'll bring this one in at Frankfurt, and we'll bring this one in at Dusseldorf. And then we'll bring in the garrison at Bremen. So that's my mobilization. The Western factions don't have anything yet. And the Russians will spend a build point to build their infantry. Let's get back over to the Russian front. And they'll be kind of obvious and just drop it in Odessa. And that ends the mobilization phase. Diplomacy phase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since there's a 70% chance that something will happen and only a 10% chance it will be bad, the Germans are going to go pull a marker and see what they can get. And the Russians are dancing in the streets. They got an area seized. Area seized goes something like this. Russians have to pick one of the, well, there's 5 territories left because they already have taken eastern Poland. One of the ones that they can take is Bessarabia, since it's close to going German anyway. They're going to go ahead and take Bessarabia as their seized territory. So I have to get back up the faction card here. And now I got to go find Bessarabia. Which, yeah, well, I picked it on the first one. How about that? So now I've got Bessarabia. When I take a ceded territory, I get an armored unit, or not armored unit, but an army unit out of my conditional box to put in the eliminated box. And I get +2 willpower. So now I'm up to 99 or 89. One more seized area and I go over the 90 limit. And that's all there is to that. Basically, these are just as a reminder for myself, I do this. No. Whoops. There we go. That's sort of a reminder to me that I own those. Sometimes you forget because there's nothing really on the map to show that you own those territories. So this just helps remind me that, yes, Russia took that one, instead of having to look back at the bay. So now it's the Western turn. They're like, they might get a political success or maybe take that German pro marker out of the bucket and make it a little better for the future. So they're going to go ahead and spend 5. Oops, I only want to move that. They send 5, and they're going to pull something out of the cup. They get a political success. So this is a bit of a quandary. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a pro... Oh, no, I have to go get pro counters again. I really should put one of each of these out in the ocean someplace. I think I will do that. Where's the... There we go. So, there needs to be a pro-Western. And I think I'm going to put it in Spain to try and buffer myself against German successes or political failures. I worry about Spain going Axis and then me having to defend Gibraltar from landward attack. So, that's what I'm doing there. And now, as I stated before, I'm just going to do a little bookkeeping here. I'm going to put one of these here. I'll put one of these here. I'm going to go get an Axis one. So instead of digging in the... where did I go? Political Axis, Pro Axis. And put an Axis one down here as well. This is more just so that when I have to get them, I don't have to dig through the... Oh boy, I'm having a terrible time here. Okay, let it be that way. That way I don't have to dig through the counters to find them. I can just come down here and grab one and put it where it belongs. So that was a political success. The Russians, being greedy Russians, are going to pay their 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they're going to put an area seized back in the cup And since there's a no event, they have to put one of those back in the cup. So the Russians kind of stacked it for themselves for maybe next turn. You'll probably get the Germans try one more time, and then it may be debatable on whether the Brits put one back to try and help the Russian pull, or if they try and pull one for themselves to buffer another minor away from the Germans. We'll just have to wait and see. So that was all 3 diplomacy phases. We check the victory. They have not conquered Germany yet, so the game's not over. And we go to the end of turn phase. So we pull up the turn track and the faction card. The only thing coming in here, it looks like, is something for the German events. Yeah, the airdrop marker. So this turn marker moves into November. The airdrop marker goes into the German events box. So, woohoo, the Germans have paratroopers now. And, oh, the other thing we need to do, I should keep that faction card open. The Russians had an eliminated unit, so it gets moved into their mobilization box. So they'll be able to build it next turn, in December. Okay. And that ends October. That seemed to be relatively quick, so I'm going to go ahead and try and do November here as well, because I have a feeling it's probably going to be just as fast. So we'll see if we can get 2 turns in here. Once again, we have to go to the weather track and pull up the player aid card with the things. Now this time when I'm rolling for the cold, I cannot roll a 2 through 4. If I roll that, I have to keep rolling until I get either a 1 or a 5 through 6. 5 or 6. Because it cannot be poor twice in a row. It cannot be the same weather as the previous month when you're in November, when you're in April, and when you're in June. So, and that again is playtesting material that I'm trying out here for the Unconditional Surrender community. So, here's the cold weather. It's a 3. I can't have that. So this is still the cold weather. It's a 6. So the cold weather went to blizzards, or whatever severe represents. It's very nasty in the cold regions. Then we'd roll for the mild zone. We have the same kind of thing. A 3 or a 4 has to be re-rolled. So for mild, oh boy, another 6. So we're severe in the cold zone. We're severe in the mild zone. And then the warm zone cannot be clear, so it has to be higher than a 2. Look at that, 3 6s in a row. The entire European theater, including the Mediterranean, just decided to be swamped in a snow. I thought this was supposed to happen when the Germans invade Russia. Be that as it may, that's our weather. Everything is severe. The Axis is not going to declare war on severe. That's even worse than poor to try and take on the Netherlands, so they're just going to let it go. And of course the West and Soviets can't do anything. We go to the economy phase. Germans are just where they were before, so they have 28. The French have 16, the British have 18, and the Russians still have their 20. Oh, actually, they added another factory because Bessarabia gives them one, so they're actually at 22. And, yes, okay. Forgot they picked up another thing there. So the Russians are approaching the German production total here, which is a scary thought this early in the war. That's the economy phases. There is no strategic warfare. Strategic movement for the Axis. The most important part there is to make sure that this guy's allowed to move again. I really don't see a need for another strategic movement. I think I have everything out of the east pretty much. If I needed to save build points, I could strategically redeploy the 4th, but I think I'll just move him on up. So, No strategic movement for Axis, nor the West, and nor the Soviets. So now we're into Axis operation phase. Again, this is going to be very, very quick. Close that down. This infantry unit will move to here. So that's a build point. This infantry unit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this infantry unit will move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's another build point. The 1st Panzer will activate as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're getting the Panzers into position here. This Panzer is going to stay up here for a possible help on taking out Denmark in case I roll really, really bad. That's why he's kind of hanging out there. He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 movement points from his starting position. So, all I have to do is move him there the turn before I'm going to come after like in April, possibly. Because I could possibly get a clear turn in May, and that's when I would have to attack. Because I wouldn't get clear in June. So he can kind of hang out there till April for now. And there was another infantry unit here, wasn't there? Yes, there is. So I spent another one there. So I spent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he goes. I should activate it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, just for kicks. And I believe everything over here is pretty much where it needs to be until I want to start making minor adjustments. So I'll just leave everything alone. And that's the German operations phase. They have everything sitting on rail lines and in their home country, so they're fine. Next up is the West. I have absolutely nothing to do with the West at this point. Like I said, I'll wait for the things. So I'm going to put one on the convoy here, go to the Middle East, and do that as well. Put one on the convoy there. And we go on to the Soviets. Those were for supply, by the way. That's why I'm putting those convoys down. The Soviets have absolutely nothing to do at this point. Oh, actually they do. They move this guy 1, 2 into Kishinev. And this guy goes into Cernati, I believe. It was a really weird way that he set things up, and it made my life very difficult. That's why I'm trying to figure out a better way to do it in this playthrough. So I'm trying to emulate his setup. And I will check again to make sure I'm not messing it up. It's sort of a semi-run strategy. It's an interesting attempt to fund Russia. So I activated, 2 units here? 1, 2. Oh dear, I'm down to 20 build points. Whatever will I do? And then that's my operations phase. There's nobody that's out of supply. The Axis does have some replacements over here. So I'm going to clear that stuff. I always keep forgetting to do that. They will spend, where's their national? They'll spend 2 build points, or production points, on this guy and this guy getting replacements. None of their aircraft need to be flipped at this point. So that's my replacements phase. The British will spend 6 to take off the 2 sortie markers. So you can see how this gets to be very repetitive and kind of a quick zipping along through the winter months early on like this, because there's no sense in going after the French and giving them all sorts of, giving that extra aircraft and things like that. So the Soviets do not have any replacements. There are no upgrades. Mobilization. If I remember right, the only one who's got a mobilization is going to be the Russians. So we'll go there. They'll spend their build point. Oh, my dear, they went under 20. And then they will put this. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to move it. The map. There we go. Then what I do is I just go ahead and place this one in Lvov. And Russians don't come in reduced. Lvov is actually part of the Russian home country now, so I can just build it there, and then I'll move it away next turn. And we are done with mobilization. Diplomacy phase again. Oh wow, that went rather quickly. Well, the Germans are, 4, 5. They got the build points. It's still pretty good chance of getting something good for them, so they're going to try again. And they get a no event. So now it's even a little better chance for the British to get something. So they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, not the French. I love Vassal and its stacking mechanisms. And so the British are going to pull from the cup as well. And this doesn't really help, but it doesn't hurt. It makes the axis not have a pro-axis marker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll to where I was storing those extra markers, and I'm just going to drop an extra one there. We'll be using them in the future. So it's not that I got anything with the British, but I did deny the Germans a chance to get a political success. Now there's only 2 chances for a success in the cup. And then the USSR, seeing that there's only 2 chances of that and 2 chances of their good stuff, they're going to go ahead and take a chance here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll spend their 5 and pull a chit. And they were lucky. They got an area seized. So they get to take another one. Now, again, this is me being Russia. This is just the way I am. So I tend to go, I will get Karelia. Let's zoom that up so you guys can see the counters a little bit. Make the box a little bit bigger. So I went and took Karelia, which is the Finnish points. One of the things I get is another infantry unit out of there, down there. And then we got to go way over here. Because, oh, I'm so stupid. I forgot to bring something with me. One of the things that happens is because they took it and there's no marker in there, that this gets, well, let me do this. Make that go away. This is going to go for a trip. First we go over here, and then we go north until we get to Helsinki. And there we go. Kaboom. That happens when the Russians take Karelia here. They also will get, oops, not a faction. Already did that part. They will pick up another 2 will. So they're up to 91 now. And they also get another factory. They will have 24 build points next turn. It's almost as many as Germany. As you can see, if they get the 3 Baltic states, they would end up at 15 factories. They would actually have more factories than the Germans. The Germans get their 15th when they conquer France and get the Alsace-Lorraine. But the only 2 countries that get up to actually factory counts up to 15 are those 2. It's an interesting quandary for the Germans because the Soviets can produce almost as much as they can through much of the war. And that's the diplomacy phases. We're done with another victory check. End of turn phase. Bring up the turn track. Only the Germans are going to get something here in December. So I'll bring up the faction card for the Germans. Are going to get something in their eliminated box. I'm just going to place it down here so that when these things, this really should go up there. So this moves into December. This infantry unit goes into my mobilization box. And that was November of 1939. I am going to stop this here, so it's going to be a short video. And then I probably am going to make another short video for the next 2 months. So there'll be 2 short videos back to back. Let you take a chance to get a look at how I'm setting things up before I go flying off into another one. So I'm going to close down these cards and leave you with the logo things down here. The GMT logo, if I can get this thing to move. So there is Unconditional Surrender, World War II in Europe. Again, by Vasta, published by GMT Games. This is Dren 608. We have just finished October and November of 1939. We will start with 1940 next time. Bye.